So what are you thinking right now is going to happen to the food chain? Is this going to get solved? Hey, the state's working and the order to allow workers to come back. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we will be short on meat. I mean, that's already in the cards. The cattle side and the pork side are harvesting at about 60% capacity today, Vance. So, I mean, that means we have a shortage coming with fresh meat. There's no way around it. I mean, that card's already been dealt.
The thing that I think most people don't realize in the United States, because we've been inundated constantly with like how great a plant-based diet is and vegan, is that people don't realize that the calories, we have a certain number of calories that humans in the United States need. And if you cut out meat, which is the super high density calorie excess, if you cut part of that out, you still need those calories for human beings. You can't just flip it over and start eating carrots because the volume to calorie ratio is nowhere near where it would need to be. And so my question becomes, at what point does the meat shortage go from being like, hey, having bacon and kind of these meats that we like just aren't around, to we have an actual calorie shortage?
It depends on how quickly we can educate people that these facilities are actually a safe environment to work in. And that's going to be our challenge over the next 7 days, Vance, because I'll give you some so now other plants are testing. We're not the only ones now, thank goodness. And I'm starting to see those results. And it's looking very similar, where 90% of the individuals that test positive are asymptomatic. So they got it at home, whatever, no problem whatsoever. You're good to go, you're immune, come back to work. The other thing that's interesting, because as a rule of thumb, I mean, it's hard work in these plants. I mean, it's not a lounge chair job. I mean, they're working hard. So as a rule of thumb, we have a pretty healthy population when you think about it overall. I mean, because you got to be fit, or it's strenuous work.
What is the work that they're doing inside of a packing plant? Describe it.
Yeah, it's all the way from somebody with a knife making cuts of meat to packaging to shipping to running forklifts to loading trucks. I mean, so it's a little bit to running robots. So
can I zoom the camera lens back? So like for people that don't know, pigs have to show up to your facility, and they show up live. They walk off of the truck and they go in and they're killed, presumably as one of the first steps, right?
Yep. And so we use a CO2 stunning, which everybody agrees is the most humane way to put the animal down. And then their first step is we bleed them. Obviously they're unconscious, but you got to get the blood out of the carcass for meat quality. And then you go through the process of dehairing them and then removing the internal, the heart, lung, and the guts. And then they go through a snap chill. And all that up to that point only takes about 5 minutes, because the quicker you take the animal, harvest it, and get it into the equilibration coolers, the better meat quality. So then it sits in there overnight for about 24 hours, and then it comes down on what we call the cut floor, the fabrication floor. And that's where you create all the different parts and pieces.
And that's what's going on with the conveyor belts, is that parts of the pig are moving by, and one person is responsible for, I get this cut off the meat, and then as it goes further down, somebody gets another cut off. And so what you're saying, what you're describing, as far as I can tell, is that if you start separating these people out so far that the conveyor belts and the timing that they need to pick that piece up, get their cut, take it off, starts to get messed up. And you guys have finally tuned this so that messing it up messes a whole bunch of other things up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so think about it as simply as this. If I got to spread people out on those lines, which are within a brick and mortar building, so I have no more room. So that means I got to remove half my workforce. So instead of running at 1,400 carcasses per hour, I'm down to 700. I'm at 50% capacity. And that's what you're going to tell me, that this country is going to produce food, meat at 50% the historical capacity?
Well,
that's a problem, Vance.
Yeah, and
especially when we got masks and all the protective gear for our employees now. We don't need that social distancing. You know, we started that politically because we didn't have the equipment. Now that we got the PPE, we don't need the social distancing. That just makes common sense.
I think